Hello, this is Sarah Braasch. Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about how Yale's Title VI review report on the living or napping while black hate crime hoax is a complete and utter farce. I want to make clear right from the beginning that Yale's ridiculous and farcical Title VI review report, the impetus for which, as Yale President Peter Salovey has made clear on multiple occasions, was the living or napping while black hate crime hoax, is immediately disqualified as illegitimate for the simple fact that no one spoke to me and no one asked to speak to me. I'm just wondering how you write a report reviewing a hate crime hoax, and you interview the perpetrators of the hoax, and you interview those complicit in the hoax, but you neglect to interview the actual victim of the hate crime hoax. I want to make clear right from the beginning that Yale's farcical and asinine Title VI review report about the living or napping while black hate crime hoax is immediately disqualified as illegitimate for the simple fact that it does not refer to the Yale campus police body camera footage from May 8, 2018, which exonerates me and exposes Yale's malfeasance. It is shameful that the report does not refer to this footage. In point of fact, Yale's ridiculous Title VI review report fails to include a single interview with a single Yale campus police officer. There is no interview with Officer Grace Schenkel, who filed my initial and subsequent police reports. There is no interview even with Yale Campus Police Chief Ronnell Higgins. I can only assume that this is because Yale didn't want to address the truth that this was a hate crime hoax. I can only assume that Yale didn't want to address the fact that I was repeatedly instructed to call the Yale Campus Police for any reason at any time. I can only assume that Yale didn't want to address the content of the Yale Campus Police body camera footage, which is that I tried in vain to tell the Yale police officers what was really happening, that I was the victim of harassment that evening and for months, not the perpetrator. I can only assume that Yale didn't want to address the fact that the recording that was made of me was illegal, and that it was distributed illegally for the purpose of shaming me for my mental health disability. And I assume that Yale didn't want to address the fact that my attacker makes clear in her illegal recording of me that Yale illegally fed her my personal information, including my mental health history. I also assume that Yale didn't want to address the fact that I had begged both the Yale administration and the Yale campus police for months to stop the harassment, stalking, and attacks against me. The characterization in Yale's asinine Title VI review report of the living or napping while black hate crime hoax is grossly false and defamatory. It is as follows. A key marker in this timeline is the May 8, 2018 incident in Yale's Hall of Graduate Studies, in which a white student called the Yale police on a black student who was napping in a common room in a residential area of the building, coming amid a national pattern of instances in which police were called on people of color engaged in normal, legitimate activities. The event created concern and anger. In the immediate aftermath, Yale President Peter Salovey and other university leaders, including Yale's chief of police, issued at least 6 statements on the inappropriateness of the call to the police and underscored their vision and expectations around belonging at Yale. That is the end of the quote. This characterization of the living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale is a straight-up, bald-faced lie. This description of the living or napping while black hate crime hoax leaves out that I was being terrorized in my isolated dorm room on Yale's campus for months, ever since the February 24th, 2018 incident. I was also being stalked across campus. This grossly false and defamatory description leaves out the fact that I was exonerated by the Yale housing managers regarding the February 24th, 2018 incident. These lies leave out the fact that I was the person who was terrorized on February 24th, 2018 in my isolated dorm room. These lies leave out the fact that I was being terrorized on the evening of May 7th, 2018 by persons using the small, little-used room next to my isolated dorm room. These lies leave out the fact that I had begged the Yale administration and the Yale campus police to protect me and to make the stalking, harassment, and attacks against me stop, to no avail. These lies leave out the fact that the only thing the Yale administration and the Yale campus police told me to do repeatedly was to call the Yale campus police at any time, for any reason whatsoever, even if I was unsure whether such a call was merited or no. These lies leave out the fact that I happened upon an unidentifiable human form entirely obscured by a blanket, camped immediately outside my isolated dorm room, in the small, little-used room next to my isolated dorm room. After having been terrorized in my isolated dorm room all evening on May 7th, 2018, and that I had no idea of the identity or the race or the sex of this unidentifiable human form because they were entirely obscured by a blanket. These lies leave out the fact that I only called the Yale campus police, as I had been repeatedly instructed to do at any time, for any reason, by the Yale administration and the Yale campus police after the person whom I had encountered made statements to me that made it clear to me that this was very likely one of the persons who had been terrorizing me all evening and possibly for months. These lies leave out the fact that I made all of these details clear to the Yale campus police on May 8th, 2018. These lies leave out the fact that the Yale campus police body camera footage from May 8th, 2018 exonerates me and exposes Yale's malfeasance. Yale continues to refuse to release the Yale campus police body camera footage from May 8th, 2018, which exonerates me and exposes Yale's malfeasance. These lies leave out the fact that I communicated all of these details via email to the Yale administration, the Yale campus police, and Yale housing before the Yale police officers even arrived on May 8th, 2018. These lies leave out the fact that I was illegally recorded on May 8th, 2018 in the threshold of my isolated dorm room, where I have a reasonable expectation of privacy and without my knowledge or consent. These lies leave out the fact that this illegal recording of me was made to shame me for my mental health disability, a fact made clear in the illegal recording itself by my attacker, who stigmatizes mental illness, calls for me to be institutionalized, refers to me as crazy and psychotic, and makes clear that Yale has been illegally feeding her my personal information, including my mental health history. The Yale campus police continues to refuse to pursue criminal charges against my attackers for this illegal recording, which was subsequently illegally and widely distributed online for the purpose of shaming me for my mental health disability. This grossly false and defamatory description of the living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale is shocking, to say the least. It is shocking that the Associate Dean of Graduate Student Development and Diversity, Michelle Nearin, was not interviewed for this Title VI review report. I have to wonder if this is because Dean Nearin told me in no uncertain terms after the February 24, 2018 incident that if I had concerns for my personal safety on campus, that I should leave campus and move out of my home in the Hall of Graduate Studies. She also told me she had no interest in my personal safety. She also told me that she had no intention of ever addressing the students who terrorized me in my isolated dorm room on February 24, 2018, nor the students who were stalking me as I walked across campus. It is shocking that no one from Yale Housing was interviewed for the Title VI review report, and I can only imagine that this is because the Yale housing managers exonerated me for the February 24, 2018 incident and told me that they would deal with all of the students who had terrorized me on that evening in my isolated dorm room. Also, the Yale housing director, George Longyear, was the one who told me that I was being accused of racism by a group of Yale deans who had already determined punishments for me, including participating in a public town hall during which I was to publicly declare myself a racist and teach other members of the Yale community how not to be racist like me. Yale Housing was fully aware that I had been terrorized in my isolated dorm room and stalked across campus for months, including by the resident coordinators of the Hall of Graduate Studies. Yale's farcical and asinine Title VI review report refers explicitly to the many grossly false and defamatory public statements by the Yale administration, including President Peter Salovey, VP of Student Life Kimberly Goff Cruz, Yale Grad School Dean Lynn Cooley, and Yale Campus Police Chief Rennell Higgins. These grossly false and defamatory public statements were part of a global, murderous defamation campaign against me, led by Yale, which almost got me killed by driving me to suicide and inciting my murder. The Title VI review report explicitly quotes Yale President Peter Salovey's egregiously defamatory and false August 1st statement, which also effectively precluded the possibility of me receiving a fair hearing at Yale and denied me all due process rights. Also, this statement incited another online mobbing against me, including death threats and threats of violence, including sexual violence. I can only interpret Yale's farcical and asinine Title VI review report as an attempt to legitimize those grossly false and defamatory public statements by Yale that almost got me killed and destroyed my life and civil rights career. Yale's ridiculous Title VI review report doesn't address or even consider the possibility of race and hate crime hoaxes, even though there is a race and hate crime hoax crisis taking place on college campuses. Most of the Living While Black incidents have turned out to be race and hate crime hoaxes, including those that have taken place on college campuses. This includes the incident at Smith College and the incident at UT San Antonio. Yale's ridiculous Title VI review report does not consider the due process rights of the accused. The report treats all accusations of racism as a foregone conclusion that racism occurred and treats any corresponding investigations as formal exercises that must be endured in order to condemn the accused. This is not surprising in the least, since the report discusses intersectionality at length. The foundational premise of intersectional feminism is that an accusation of racism by a Black person against a white person is a condemnation of racism against the accused white person. Any demand for due process is racist. Any attempt to defend oneself against the false accusation of racism is racist. This is because any attempt to defend oneself and any attempt for due process any demand for due process is considered an attempt to uphold the current status quo system of oppression. It is not surprising in the least that Yale's ridiculous Title VI review report recommends not establishing a Title VI office on campus. This is the last thing that Yale wants. Yale does not want to have to recognize the due process rights of the accused. They want to be able to simply destroy the lives of any students who have been accused of racism. They want to be able to simply oust them as individual bad apples. And they never want to have to admit that any black students falsely accused their fellow students or engaged in any wrongdoing. Quite simply, Yale wants to be able to simply throw accused students under the bus to appease the intersectional left on campus. I find it so interesting that Yale's ridiculous and defamatory Title VI review report includes an interview with Susan Sawyer, but not Caroline Hendel from Yale's General Counsel office. Susan Sawyer was the attorney with whom my attorney primarily dealt. She was fully aware and admitted that there was no reason to think that I had ever acted out of racial animus or bias in any way, shape, or form. She admitted as much before Yale President Peter Salovey made his grossly false and defamatory August statement about me that put my life in grave danger and precluded the possibility of me receiving a fair hearing on Yale's campus. I know for a fact that many persons inside Yale tried to tell President Salovey how illegal, immoral, false, defamatory, and wrongful his August public statement was. I find it so interesting that Yale's ridiculous Title VI review report doesn't include an interview with attorney Caroline Hendel of Yale's General Counsel. Attorney Hendel was the attorney to whom I addressed my concerns when I was unable to resolve the issue with Dean Neeren following the February 24, 2018 incident. I expressed to Attorney Hendel that I believed that Dean Neeren was in gross violation of Title IX and the ADA. I told Attorney Hendel that Dean Neeren had expressed a callous disregard for my personal safety. Attorney Hendel essentially told me that she didn't care and that I had no choice but to deal with Dean Neeren. This was coming from someone in Yale's Title IX steering committee. I was shocked to see that Yale's fallacious Title VI review report did include an interview with Yale Provost and University-wide Title IX Coordinator Stephanie Spangler. Provost Spangler was the person with whom I primarily dealt, along with Associate Provost Cynthia Smith. Back in March, Provost Spangler told me not to worry. She told me that everything would be okay. She told me that Yale would always do the right thing, regardless of legal liability or PR. Obviously, she lied. I now realize that she wasn't actually trying to help me, which is her job. She was merely trying to go through the motions of helping me to protect Yale from legal liability. I am truly devastated by her betrayal. I know that I have to stop thinking that people whose jobs are to help me are actually telling the truth, and that they are actually going to do their jobs and help me, and that they are on my side. She must have stabbed me in the back and lied about everything, given the outcome of the report. I think it's egregious and disgusting that Yale's Title VI review report refers to the grossly false and defamatory open letter with an addendum from Black graduate and professional students and our allies to our university administrators with recommendations for dismantling racism at Yale. This letter condemns me as guilty of racial harassment and was submitted to the administration before the Yale community or the public knew any of the facts of the matter, which the administration subsequently lied about. The letter calls for a zero-tolerance policy regarding racial policing. Well, I am here, by the grace of God, no less, to let you know that the only person whose presence was being policed on the basis of race on Yale's campus was me. So in this case, if this is what they truly want, then my attackers at Yale should be expelled for their disgusting and racist behavior. I was the only person being harassed on the basis of race during the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale. Yale's ridiculous Title VI review report includes an extensive discussion of Yale's new Belonging at Yale initiative. I just want to make perfectly clear that Yale has made perfectly clear that this initiative does not include me nor women like me. Yale's Belonging at Yale initiative does not include older, poor, white women with mental health disabilities. I want to let all older, poor, white women with mental health disabilities know that Yale will allow you to be terrorized in your isolated dorm room for months and not only do nothing about it, but also participate in your being terrorized in your own home. If you're an older, disabled woman on Yale's campus, Yale will allow you to be stalked as you walk across campus. If you're an older, disabled woman on Yale's campus, Yale will illegally feed your personal information to your attackers, including your mental health history. If you're an older, disabled woman on Yale's campus, Yale will allow you to be illegally recorded while you are standing in the threshold of your dorm room. In conclusion, Yale should retract their Title VI review report as the complete and utter farce that it is. Thank you so much for spending this time with me.